Have you ever felt that something was just off, but no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't quite put your finger on it? Like the choices you thought were yours suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else? Imagine a quiet force, invisible yet powerful, guiding your every step, shaping your reactions, silently pulling strings behind the scenes. You believed you were being kind, generous even. You thought your understanding was genuine, yet deep inside, something nagged at you, a subtle discomfort you couldn't explain. Perhaps you gave a favor you didn't truly want to give. Or maybe you found yourself agreeing in a conversation where you clearly knew you were right. Possibly you trusted someone who later revealed a side of themselves that shocked you too. The core? This isn't a mere coincidence. No, this is design. Because whether you realize it or not, you are being manipulated by those closest to you. By the media you consume, and by people who understand exactly how to play the subtle mechanics of your mind. The most unsettling part, you believe you are making your own decisions. Niccolo Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago, understood that power rarely wears a crown. Instead, it often wears a smile. And its most potent weapon is not violence, but emotional leverage. This video isn't here to comfort you. It's here to arm you, to hand you the very lens Machiavelli himself used to dissect human nature. A lens so sharp it cuts through every illusion, exposing truth beneath the surface. Because those who fail to understand manipulation are doomed to be shaped by it. And those who refuse to acknowledge their own vulnerabilities will inevitably be ruled by those who exploit them. You don't need a villain to be controlled. All you need is unawareness. But today that changes. Welcome to the art of seeing clearly, thinking independently, and living untouchable. If you're ready for this journey, then let's begin. Manipulation rarely announces itself with threats or harsh commands. It often arrives wearing charm, a soft voice, a kind word, a look that whispers, "I understand you," and that is precisely why it is so effective. The most dangerous form of control is the one that convinces you that you are free. It whispers instead of shouting. It asks instead of ordering. It always makes sure you believe the decision was yours all along. Machiavelli grasped this deeply. He never romanticized human nature or assumed people acted out of pure goodness or principle. Instead, he studied the hidden mechanics beneath the surface, the levers of desire, fear, guilt, and approval that truly move people. He wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands," meaning that perception is not truth, justice, or even logic, is what truly matters. Perception, the crafted image, the emotional setup, the carefully staged theater of motive is the very place where manipulation thrives. Have you ever noticed how some people effortlessly get what they want? They don't raise their voices, they don't issue demands, they don't threaten. Instead, they steer you gently as if you're the one calling the shots. They read the room, they read you. They notice details most people completely overlook, the slight hesitation in your tone, the insecurity hidden behind your laugh, the flicker of need in your eyes when you're desperately trying not to show it. These subtle signals are like open doors to those who understand the human mind deeply. Once they map out your internal wiring, they don't push or shove. Instead, they merely suggest, planting ideas softly and delicately. And somehow, almost mysteriously, you end up doing exactly what they hoped you would. You believe it was your idea, your choice, but in truth, it was theirs all along. This isn't some form of magic or supernatural power. This is cold, precise calculation, a skill, honed and learned. A craft Machiavelli admired not because it was noble or just, but because it was incredibly effective. He never claimed the world is fair or kind. Rather, he asserted that the world is predictable, governed by a small set of powerful emotions: fear, desire, status, and security. And those who understand these emotional patterns have the ability to pull the strings behind every decision you make. This is the subtle, invisible power of manipulation. It begins long before a single word is spoken. It starts in silence, in the act of watching, of analyzing you as a target. The manipulator listens more than they speak, always alert, sensing the cracks before they even appear. They detect your hunger for validation, your fear of rejection, your instinctive urge to apologize for simply being, And when the moment is just right, they strike not with force, but with gentle precision. A compliment here, a sigh there, a phrase like, "I thought you were different." And just like that, you find yourself dancing to music you never chose, reciting lines in a play you never wrote on a stage you never built, yet it all feels so real, so personal, so undeniably lifelike. That's the brilliance of psychological manipulation. It doesn't require brute force. It only needs your willing participation. Most people give in without realizing they are. Caught in a game, they think they're being kind. They think they're being understanding. They believe that keeping the peace means protecting their dignity. But Machiavelli would say that's not Pizit's surrender. And once surrender is given emotionally, it becomes a habit, a way of life. You stop questioning. You stop resisting. Instead, you begin to blame yourself for the pain others cause you, because the most skilled manipulators don't control your actions directly. Instead, they control your interpretation of those actions. They make you doubt your own instincts. They seed the idea that maybe you are too sensitive, too selfish, too much, and in that dense fog of uncertainty, they take control quietly, effortlessly, with absolute precision. Now, understand this clearly. You are not manipulated because you're stupid. You're manipulated because you are human. Every person has a blind spot, a weakness, a wound, a silent need buried deep within. And when those weaknesses remain unexamined, they become the levers others pull without mercy. Machiavelli warned us never to assume appearances reflect reality. He taught us that people will use morality, love, kindness, not as values to live by, but as tools, as masks, as weapons. And unless you start looking beyond the performance, you will always be the one being played. So stop asking, why are they doing this to me? Instead, start asking, what in me allowed this to happen? Because until you confront the part of you that submits, you will keep submitting, and though it may feel like choice, it simply will not be. That is the hidden tragedy of being human. The illusion of freedom while quietly giving in. But it doesn't have to be your destiny. The true battlefield of manipulation isn't out there, in the arguments you have or the decisions you make. No, it lies much deeper, inside you in the unhealed places, the emotional gaps you've never learned to recognize. This is the manipulator's playground. They don't invade your mind with brute force or obvious coercion. Instead, they slip quietly into the spaces you left undefended. The spaces shaped by childhood, by shame, by years of bending and breaking just to be accepted. You are not weak. You are not naive. You are simply human, not that very humanity. That vulnerability is exactly what makes you susceptible. Some of us carry wounds so old, so familiar, they have become a part of who we are. The desperate need to be liked. The paralyzing fear of disappointing others. The creeping guilt that rises. Every time we dare to choose ourselves first, the manipulator sees these before you do. They see the man raised to earn love through usefulness, the man who says yes before he even has a chance to think, the man who apologizes simply for existing. They see the woman taught that putting up walls is selfish, that saying no makes her cold, that protecting herself is an act of betrayal. Into these cracks they pour themselves, smiling, charming, using carefully chosen words that feel like care but are actually control. Machiavelli wrote that people are driven by two main impulses, love and fear. But he didn't mean simple affection or terror. He meant validation and rejection, the twin forces that shape nearly every choice you make. Whether you realize it or not, you want to be wanted. You want to be safe. You want to belong. So when someone offers even the illusion of these needs being met, you bend. You adjust. You surrender not because you're broken, but because you crave relief. And this is the trap. The manipulator doesn't force you. They let you move the pieces. They let you say yes. They let you lower your guard. They don't ask. They imply. They don't command. They hint. And when you comply, they smile quietly, knowing full well that now you are doing it to yourself. That is the elegance of emotional manipulation. It's clean, silent, leaving no fingerprints. Once you learn to trace your own reactions back to their root, you will never know where the control began. Ask yourself, do you feel guilty when you say no? Do you find yourself over-explaining your boundaries? You try to please everyone, even when it exhausts you. Then somewhere inside there is a voice whispering, if I'm not agreeable, I won't be loved. If I stand my ground, I'll be abandoned. If I protect myself, I'm selfish. That voice did not start with you. It started long ago, from parents, from culture, from a moment in childhood when kindness became currency. Now it plays, on repeat, a haunting soundtrack. Every time someone tugs at your loyalty, every time someone gaslights you into silence, every time someone says, ...
I can't believe you do this to me. And still, you stay. You keep giving until you lose a little more of yourself with each sacrifice. But Machiavelli had no interest in guilt or sentimentality. He was blunt and pragmatic. He understood that weakness, when ignored or unacknowledged, invites exploitation, not because people are inherently evil, but because they are opportunistic by nature. He warned rulers long ago to study human nature as it really is, not as it should be in some ideal world. To recognize that those who hesitate are overthrown by those who don't hesitate. That those who wait to be respected end up ruled by those who demand respect. And what is true in the brutal world of politics is just as true in love, in family, in business, and in every relationship where power remains unspoken, but always present. Beneath the surface, your emotions are not your enemy. The real danger lies in your ignorance of them. Until you can name the forces that control you, you will never truly control them. Until you expose what drives your need to please, you will keep handing your power away. And that is what manipulation truly feeds on, not stupidity, not weakness, but your silence. So break that silence. Say it out loud. I feel guilt. I feel fear. I crave approval. Not as a way to excuse yourself, but as a map that will lead you out of this invisible prison. Because only when you name the chain can you begin to break it. And when you do, that is when the manipulator loses, not in a fight, not in a shouting match, but in your quiet refusal to be shaped by anything but truth. This is where the shift begins, not through resistance, but through awareness. You are not a puppet. You are not a pawn. But only if you choose to stop living like one. It's easy to spot manipulation when it comes from strangers. The red flags are visible. The language feels rehearsed, the intention distant. You have room to step away, to walk away. But what happens when the manipulator is your mother, your partner, your best friend, the person who claims to love you? What happens when the chains come laced with affection and tenderness? This is where manipulation becomes truly dangerous, because it no longer feels like control. It feels like care. They say, I'm only doing this because I love you, and you believe them. They say, without you, I'm nothing. And you stay not because you're blind, but because you're loyal, because you're kind, because walking away from someone you love feels like betrayal. But Machiavelli would ask a much harder question, not, do they love you, but what do they do with that love? Because real love frees, it doesn't bind. Real love empowers. It doesn't guilt. Real love honors your individuality. It doesn't erase it, yet manipulation wears many masks. And when it comes wrapped in memories, shared experiences, and emotional debts, it becomes almost impossible to call out. You tell yourself, they're just hurt. They don't mean it. This is just how they are. And so, little by little, you silence your truth to protect their comfort. You walk on eggshells, carefully editing your words, shrinking yourself, all to avoid upsetting them. And in doing so, you vanish not all at once, but piece by piece. This is the most sophisticated kind of manipulation, the one that quietly turns your greatest virtues into your prison. Your empathy becomes your leash, your loyalty morphs into a cage, and your silence, your quiet compliance, becomes their source of power. At work, it sounds like, you should be grateful. Who else would give you this opportunity? In family, it echoes relentlessly. You owe us everything. After all we've done for you, after all the sacrifices. And wrapped in love's disguise, it whispers, if you leave, no one will ever love you like I do. Maybe they're right, but that doesn't make them good people. It only makes them effective manipulators. And Machiavelli respected effectiveness far more than virtue. He understood that some people don't need to rule with iron fists. They rule with implication, with a sigh, with the silence that follows your no, with the tears that fall when you finally try to stand up for yourself. And the question isn't whether they're aware of what they're doing. The real question is, why do you keep bending? Why do you keep folding when your own soul is breaking? This is the wound nobody talks about, the heartbreak of realizing that love isn't always pure or clean. That some people love you only through control, that some only feel secure when you feel small, and that some only feel powerful when they can make you feel guilty. But here's what you need to hear. Proximity does not equal truth. Time invested does not guarantee trust. And just because someone says they love you doesn't mean they truly know how to love you well. Sometimes the bravest thing you will ever do is walk away from someone who believes they own you, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with quiet, unshakable clarity. You say, this is where I end, and you begin. You refuse to let them decide what you feel, what you choose, or who you become. And when the tears come, when the accusations flood in, you remain still, because the manipulator thrives on your reaction. They wait for your guilt. They feed on your desperate need to explain, to soften, to retreat your boundaries. But this time, you don't. You let them sit in the emptiness their control has created, and you walk out of the role they wrote for you. It's not easy. It hurts deeply. You'll question yourself endlessly. You'll grieve what you lose. But what you gain is far greater. You regain your clarity, your voice, your spine, and above all, your self-respect. Machiavelli would call this a repositioning of power, not to dominate, but to restore balance. To remind the other person that your love is not servitude, that your presence is not an obligation, but a privilege. So ask yourself, who in your life is keeping you small? Who makes you doubt yourself under the guise of care? And what would happen if you finally stopped playing your part in their script? Because if you never stop to ask these questions, you will never hear your own answers. And the play will go on long after you've forgotten it was never your stage to begin with. Once you see the strings, you cannot unsee them. Once you understand the game, you cannot keep pretending you're not in it. The only way out of manipulation is not through more kindness, not through louder boundaries, It's single quotes S through strategy. Because kindness without strategy quickly becomes exploitation. Empathy without clarity easily turns into surrender. And love, when not firmly grounded in self-respect, transforms into the very noose tightening around your freedom. Machiavelli never told us to stop feeling or to shut down our emotions. Instead, he urged us to stop being predictable. He reminded us that true power doesn't belong to the loudest voices, but to the most observant minds, the ones who think before speaking, who listen before reacting, and who plan not to hurt others, but to protect themselves from being hurt. Again, this journey begins with pattern recognition. Stop living on emotional autopilot. Ask yourself honestly, what is your default response when people pressure you? When they flatter you or guilt you, do you fold? Do you over-explain? Do you stay silent just to keep the peace? If so, you're not truly choosing, you're merely reacting. And manipulators are counting on exactly that. Strategic thinking begins by breaking your own patterns. Say no where you usually say yes. Be silent where you once felt the need to explain yourself. Step back when they expect you to chase or give in. That moment of unpredictability throws their carefully crafted rhythm into chaos because they no longer know what to expect next. And power lives in that very uncertainty. Machiavelli wrote, it is much safer to be feared than loved if one must. Choose, but fear here isn't about cruelty or harshness. It's about respect. It's the kind of presence that says, I won't be moved just because you want me to be. I won't be swayed by flattery or guilt. I won't negotiate my worth. This isn't about becoming cold or detached from your humanity. It's about becoming consciously aware. When you master emotional detachment, you no longer hand over the script for your mind to be controlled. You recognize manipulative tactics and pause delaying your reaction. And in that pause, you reclaim your power. Another principle Machiavelli lived by was this: control the perception, because perception is often more powerful than the truth. So stop over-explaining yourself. Stop feeling the need to defend your boundaries to everyone. Speak less, reveal less. Leave space for others to wonder and guess. Because in silence, you hold the upper hand. The manipulator wants you to expose yourself emotionally. They want you to cry, to yell, to justify yourself endlessly. The louder you become, the easier it is for them to predict your moves. So train your silence. Use it like a mirror. Let them confront their own tactics in the absence of your reaction. And then, most importantly, build your identity like a fortress. Know exactly who you are. Be clear about what you believe. Define what you will and will not tolerate. Because the manipulator's goal isn't to destroy you outright, it's far more subtle. They want to make you question yourself, to plant seeds of doubt that you then water with your own overthinking. But when your inner foundation is solid, and your sense of self is deeply rooted, no external voice can override your inner compass. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You don't need to fix what was never yours to carry. And that is liberation. Machiavelli believed that the prudent man is the one who studies history, who learns from the great minds that came before him, who carefully watches how others fall and wisely chooses not to follow their path. You don't need to become ruthless or cold-hearted. What you need is awareness. Because in a world where everyone is constantly trying to influence you, to shape your choices and your feelings, your self-awareness becomes your strongest shield. Your silence, your most precise sword. And your strategy, your ultimate freedom. So ask yourself, are you still playing defense, reacting to others, constantly explaining yourself? Or are you finally ready to lead your own mind like a strategist, not merely survive like a victim? Because the battlefield is invisible. The war may not be loud or public, but it is real. And only those who think like Machiavelli, who embrace awareness and strategy, will walk through this world untouched by manipulation and control. The final battle is not with the manipulator out there. It's with yourself. Not the self you present to the world, but the hidden version shaped long ago before you understood what power truly meant. The version trained to submit, to please, to obey without question. The truth may be hard to face, but it will set you free. Because the real manipulator isn't always a person standing in front of you. Sometimes it's a voice you internalized. Years ago, a belief you never questioned. A story you were told about who you must be and what you must sacrifice in order to be loved. Perhaps it was a parent whose affection was conditional, or a teacher who praised your silence more than your spirit. Maybe it was society itself, whispering again and again, don't rock the boat, don't make people uncomfortable, don't say no. And now, here you are, as an adult still asking for permission, still explaining your worth, still living like someone else holds the key to your value. Machiavelli saw this with chilling clarity. He knew that the most effective control doesn't come from ruling over nations or armies. It comes from shaping beliefs, influencing perception, convincing a person that the cage they are trapped in is where they belong. And that is the final lie you must burn to ashes. Because you were never meant to be small. You were never born to be agreeable just to keep the peace. You were not made to be a background character in someone else's story. The moment you stop mistaking your conditioning for your character, you begin. The moment you realize that obedience is not virtue, but fear cleverly disguised, you begin. And the moment you decide that no one, not even your past, gets to define who you are anymore, you win. But this battle isn't loud. It's not fought with fists or harsh words. It's a quiet, relentless decision. A daily, sometimes difficult commitment to take your mind back. To stop giving away your peace in exchange for approval. To stop bending your boundaries just so others can feel taller, stronger, more in control. That is where true freedom starts. To stop calling your silence strength, when in truth, it is fear hiding behind a mask. Because true power isn't about control over others. It's about clarity within yourself. When you know exactly what you stand for, you cannot be easily moved or shaken. When you truly know who you are, you stop asking others for permission simply to exist. And when you reach that place, something undeniable shifts in the atmosphere around you. People feel it subtly but unmistakably. They no longer talk over you or attempt to drown out your voice. They no longer guilt trip you or try to steer. Your choice is like a captain steering a rudderless ship. Not because you became loud or aggressive, but because your presence itself became impossible to ignore. Machiavelli never asked you to become cruel or harsh. He asked you to become sovereign over your own emotions, your own mind, your own life. To stop letting your feelings be used against you like weapons. To stop trading your self-respect for the fragile peace of others' approval. And to stop waiting for others to value you when you have not valued yourself first. This is the final war, and it is fought quietly in the stillness of your choices. Every time you say no without guilt. Every time you walk away without needing to explain yourself. Every time you allow someone to misunderstand you but refuse to shrink or dim your light. That is power. That is control. That is liberation. It's not something granted by others, but something taken, claimed by you. So ask yourself honestly, what part of your mind is still held hostage by someone else's influence? Whose voice still echoes in your decisions, whispering doubt or hesitation? And what would your life look like if you thought entirely for yourself, fully, clearly, and fearlessly? Deep down, you already know the answer. You have always known. You were simply waiting for permission to act on it. But no more. Because the moment you stop asking for permission, that's the moment you begin to create your own rules, your own voice, your own life. And that life, your life, belongs to no one else. It is yours now, so take it. You have reclaimed your mind. But don't think for a moment that the world will stop trying to pull you back. It never does. The faces may change, the voices may shift, the demands may alter, but the old patterns remain the same. That is the nature of power. It doesn't knock just once. It circles back like a shadow, waiting to test your defenses again. It waits patiently for your moments of weakness, when fatigue weighs heavy, when doubt creeps in, when loneliness fills the room. And in those moments, it will whisper again. Guilt will knock on your door. Fear will tap lightly on your shoulder. The need for approval will return, dressed in new clothes, disguised in fresh words, and you will be tempted to let it in, to explain yourself one more time, to shrink back, to bend just a little. But this time you won't, because now you know the pattern. You see the game before it even begins. This is the true mark of someone who has stepped out of the role of puppet and stepped into the role of strategist. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He never promised peace. He never promised fairness. What he offered instead was something far more valuable: awareness, power through clarity, a way to walk through a manipulative world without ever being owned by it. And in that awareness you find stillness, not numbness, not coldness, but true control. The kind of presence that doesn't flinch under pressure, that doesn't chase after validation, that doesn't beg to be understood or accepted. You don't need to fight every battle that comes your way. You don't have to win every argument or justify your existence to anyone. Instead, your silence, your distance, and your mastery over yourself become your new forms of resistance, quiet, unwavering, and powerful. Because the truly powerful are not those who dominate others through force or noise. They are the ones who cannot be dominated, who stand firm no matter what storms rage around them. So from this moment forward, be hard to read, be impossible to predict, be untouchable not by hiding away or retreating, but by standing so firmly in your truth that no storm, no accusation, no manipulation can shake your foundation. Let people misuse you if they choose. Let them project their insecurities and misunderstandings onto you. Let them walk away, because anything that leaves when you stop pleasing, it was never truly love. It was manipulation disguised as affection, control disguised as care. You were never born to be shaped by hands that fail to understand your worth. You were never meant to explain or justify your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. And you were never obligated to carry the burden or guilt of someone else's disappointment. You are here for something deeper, a purpose greater than the noise around you. You are here to live with full awareness, to walk through life wearing emotional armor, not as an impenetrable wall, but as wisdom that shields without shutting down. To speak less, observe more, and choose your words and actions with precision. Because in a world full of noise, true clarity is rare and precious. In a world filled with endless games and shifting rules, sovereignty, self-sovereignty, is true power. And that power is yours now. Don't give it back. Guard it fiercely, nurture it daily. And if this message has found you at the right moment in your journey, don't let it fade here. Let it live inside you. Let it shape your next no, your next silent moment, your next decision that honors your truth instead of someone else's comfort or expectations. And if it has helped you in any way, please click like, subscribe, not for me, but for you. Because every time you choose growth over guilt, clarity over confusion, and strength over submission, you are building a life that no one can manipulate again. Not because you've become harder or cold, but because you've become wiser. And wisdom, true wisdom, is the final unshakable power.